This is a pedestrianized street in Amsterdam, but it used to be packed with cars. This is a bicycle and tram street, but it used to be packed with cars. Over the years, a lot has changed in one of Amsterdam's greatest neighborhoods, the Pijp. Although it is now a highly desirable area that prioritizes pedestrians and cyclists, it used to be the complete opposite. Amsterdam was a city for cars. In the 1970s, growing car traffic was making life in the city much worse. There were increasing levels of air and noise pollution and a rise in road fatalities. Many cities today face the exact same issues, but haven't taken the steps that Amsterdam has. So, how did the Pijp evolve into the vibrant neighborhood it is today? Walking through the Pijp today, whether by day or night, is a very enjoyable experience. The neighborhood features charming streets, a wide selection of bars and restaurants, great waterfronts, and well-designed public spaces. To understand what makes it so great, we need to explore its history. In the 19th century, European cities saw a huge increase in population due to the Industrial Revolution, as people moved to cities in search of a better life. This created a high demand for new housing to accommodate the growing working-class population. The first expansion plan outside the Zingelgracht, which marked the border of the historic urban core, was proposed in 1866 by engineer Jacobus van Niftrik. His plan featured large residential blocks, a luxury villa district, and a new central station. However, it was rejected by the city council because it wouldn't house enough people. The Pijp, as we see it today, evolved from a different plan. In 1875, Jan Kalf, the city's director of public works, proposed a new expansion plan. This plan kept the old street patterns, following the ditches of the original polders. The neighborhood was largely built with a grid structure, similar to other 19th century urban plans of the time, such as Barcelona's. The neighborhood was primarily made up of 4-story brick apartment buildings, as well as mixed-use buildings with shops. A park was constructed in the middle of the neighborhood and serves to this day as a great place to relax or exercise. Unfortunately, the buildings were mostly made of poor quality and were overcrowded at the time, as there were no real building regulations and developers wanted to profit quickly. But for the most part, the historic urban fabric has been preserved. If we take a closer look at this part of the neighborhood and map out the buildings and green spaces, we can see that the area is primarily composed of traditional urban blocks. As you walk through the neighborhood, the streetscape feels uninterrupted, with building facades constantly facing the street, creating a cohesive and continuous urban environment. There are several benefits associated with building traditional or enclosed blocks. Traditional urban blocks usually consist of 4 to 5 stories, creating dense urban areas. Buildings at this height create a human-scaled street and are straightforward to construct, with simpler and cheaper foundations compared to taller structures. This design promotes a dense mixed-use urban fabric that has several benefits. Mixed-use fabrics are spaces where people can live, work, shop, and socialize nearby. This promotes daily interactions with friends, neighbors, and strangers, fostering a sense of community and belonging. A mixed-use fabric also enables daily necessities to be within a short walk. It means you can easily stroll to a restaurant for dinner, enjoy a bar afterwards, and walk back home, all without needing a car. In contrast, living in the suburbs forces you to drive. If you want to go out with your friends, you'll need to drive. However, in a neighborhood like the Pijp, countless destinations are just a short walk away, and cycling or using public transport further extends your reach. What also makes building enclosed blocks such a great urban form is that they allow very different spaces to exist in very close proximity. If we create a small model of one of the streets, we can see that there is a clearly defined public space on the street, and in the back, residents have a private green space. The private green space essentially creates a small gated community in the middle of a busy city. Because the urban block is enclosed, traffic noise is significantly reduced, allowing you to sleep with the window open during summer without disturbance. This design creates a safe environment where you can have a barbecue, securely park your bike, or let your children play independently. However, it's essential to create safe spaces on the streets as well, where children can play freely. Here, cars aren't allowed to pass through. There's a playground alongside a two-way bike lane, allowing only cyclists to pass while keeping cars out. Similarly, further up the street, car access has been restricted, permitting only bicycles to travel through. This concept, known as filtered permeability, allows specific modes of transport to access certain spaces, helping to limit through traffic and create a more pleasant living environment. In the Netherlands, public spaces are divided into traffic and residential areas. Traffic areas prioritize the movement of vehicles, while residential areas prioritize livability. Where the two areas meet, a continuous pavement is preferred, which indicates pedestrian priority and allows them to cross the street at the same level as the pavement. Traffic areas should include separated bicycle infrastructure, while residential areas should feature traffic-calm streets with reduced speed limits. In traffic areas with public transport, it's ideal to have dedicated transit lanes to prevent trams and buses from getting stuck in traffic. In newer areas in Amsterdam, cars and bikes often share the road because drivers are used to cyclists, and traffic volumes on these routes have been significantly lowered. Although typically cars and bikes only share the road in residential areas like here in South Pijp. There is a canal with traffic-calm streets on both sides, and there is no through traffic. Only a few cars are passing by now and then. This lowers air and noise pollution, reduces road crashes, and reduces stress by creating a peaceful living environment. Waterfronts are very important public spaces, but if there were constant traffic, it wouldn't be nearly as inviting as it is now. You can enjoy the waterfront in peace, free from the constant noise of passing cars. To eliminate through traffic, streets are primarily designed as one way for cars. This prevents drivers from using them as shortcuts. By implementing one-way streets, more space is freed up for car and bicycle parking, as well as underground garbage containers. Streets have great traffic calming here. Intersections are raised, which slows down drivers and allows people to cross them more easily. Streets in residential areas are often paved with brick, which help reduce vehicle speed while also looking nice. I talk more about traffic and residential areas in more detail in this video. Even with a lot of on-street parking, the street remains a nice livable space because there is no through traffic and there are trees and facade gardens. These are small strips of soil in front of buildings that add a touch of greenery and make a significant impact on the overall environment. In other parts of the neighborhood, streets are removing on-street parking to introduce more greenery, creating truly beautiful spaces. The remaining parking spots are designated for people with special needs and delivery vehicles. However, this transformation comes at a high cost, as an underground parking garage has been constructed to accommodate the relocated parking. But creating a livable street doesn't have to be expensive. A simple concrete barrier can effectively prevent through traffic. It's more about the mindset that a balance can be struck between car accessibility and livability, and this mindset is what the residents embraced a long time ago. In the 1970s, Amsterdam was dominated by cars. Old photographs of the Pijp reveal streets filled with cars, a lack of cycling infrastructure, public transport getting stuck in traffic, and almost no greenery. Streets are essentially a sea of asphalt, prioritizing cars above all. In the Netherlands, the number of road fatalities rose sharply, from around 1,000 deaths in 1950 to a record 3,000 in 1972. The negative effects on livability and the rise in fatalities sparked public outrage. During the Amsterdam Autovrij protests, residents across the city called for safer streets and a more bicycle-friendly environment. This banner in the Pijp says, "You are approaching the Pijp. Leave your exhaust pipe outside the Pijp." This guy had trouble crossing this intersection, so he made his own pedestrian crossing to cross the street safely. These protests from the 70s and 80s played a crucial role in changing transport policy in the Netherlands, helping transform neighborhoods like the Pijp into more livable and bicycle-friendly spaces. Since the 70s, road fatalities have significantly dropped in the country, with a whopping 80% reduction in the last 50 years. And of course, urban environments have become much more livable with less air and noise pollution. Today, the scenery is very different from what it was in the 80s, with perhaps the most significant change occurring on this street. Eerste van der Helstraat used to be filled with cars, but today part of the street has been pedestrianized and several trees have been planted, transforming it into a wonderful public space. Business is thriving and people are enjoying the space. Delivery vehicles can still access the buildings with bollards that open at specific times. However, other than that, cars have been banned, transforming the area into a vibrant public space. In the evenings, the atmosphere is truly amazing. Similarly, the playground street we discussed earlier wasn't always a playground with trees. It used to be a sea of asphalt filled with parked cars. And so was this street. People couldn't cycle safely, but today, despite being a traffic area, it restricts through traffic and has been transformed into a bicycle and tram street, allowing only deliveries at specified times. With no constant car flow, you can comfortably sit on the street and enjoy a cup of coffee. But even the rest of traffic areas with car traffic are livable spaces. Just look at these trees. It has to be one of the nicest streets in the world. Other traffic areas, like the one we saw earlier, didn't always have curbside protected bike lanes. This street used to be a sea of asphalt, but today, the space for cars has been narrowed and curbside protected bike lanes have been added on both sides. The lessons from the Pijp are clear. Put people over cars and people will be happy. All of the things the Pijp has done, like restricting through traffic, building bike lanes, creating dedicated transit lanes, and planting trees, are something that your city can do. Will your city be next?